Hey miners, Mining King here. Today we're going to be checking out some servers. So before we get into that, here's a word from our sponsor.
Heromines.com. For the month of September, they are removing all of their fees. No block reward fee, no payout fees for their Ethereum Classic, Ergo and Ravencoin mining pools. And additionally, no parallel asset fee on their Flux pool, where parallel assets are added instantly to their payable balance. Not only that, they are giving away $1,500 in total, where at each of Ethereum Classic, Ergo, Flux, and Ravencoin, you can win $250 in 4 separate giveaways and $500 in one big combined giveaway. Heromines makes it easy for you to mine with 12 regions across the world, single port variable difficulty, pool and solo mining support, and in-depth stats for your crypto that you are mining. Join Heromines.com today, link down below.
Okay guys, so we're just over here at runonflux.io and we're over on the node side, and this is going to be where they have all the node requirements for all your different particular kinds of nodes. And it's going to depend on what kind of node you want to run from home, because there's a few factors that you have to really watch out for. So I know that some people, want to make nodes. Some people buy the mini PCs or the Raspberry Pis. I'm letting you know if you want to buy a server, because I feel like a server is kind of more, it has way more utility and you get way more for your money than just buying like a mini PC or a Raspberry Pi, right? That's just me though. You guys do whatever you want. Now, this hardware I am recommending is used, so you might have to, troubleshoot, or maybe even, take that into consideration that all these parts are used. But you do get a little bit of a warranty. You get, I think, a 90-day warranty, so just keep that in mind. Now, on our first one here, the Cumulus, it doesn't take a whole lot to get this going, because it's only 2 cores and 4 threads, but some people, I can see them not buying the correct hardware. So I'll go over that in a minute. But the main thing that you need to look out for is going to be the SSD. You need to have enough hard drive space. You need to have enough EPS, which is executions per second. And obviously you need to watch the download speed, right? That is download and upload, not just one way. It needs to be both. So and then we'll move up to the Nimbus node, which is 4 cores and 8 threads, 32 gigs of RAM. So we've quadrupled our RAM consumption, right? So we went from 8 gigs on the Cumulus node to 32 gigs on the Nimbus node. And you will also see that we've jumped up to 640 executions per second. That's about double and a half of the previous one. And then we'll go up to Stratus, which is 8 cores and 16 threads. And then it's 1,520 executions per second. So you will see that you'll need much faster CPUs. Today, I'm going to be concentrating on just the Cumulus side, because I think that's the side that more people are looking at. It's the one that's more obtainable, right? To get 1,000 flux versus 40,000 flux. Not that many people are going to, lock up, get I think it's at 80 cents, so it's probably under 40,000 now. But when it's at $1, that's like $40,000 you're locking away. So kind of just keep that in mind. So let's go over to where I found my server, right? And I think it was priced very, very well. It is a Dell Power Edge, but I want to show you guys, as we're like looking through Amazon, things that we need to pay attention to and what to look for in these older Xeon servers, because some people aren't educated in the Xeon families and it can get tricky a little bit. So you really need to do a little bit of research. You do need to figure out what particular Xeons and what families they come from. Do they use DDR2 or DDR3? Because there are some older ones on the first generation that use DDR2, and those are not going to help you at all. You will fail your benchmarks on your Cumulus node. So you need to at least have a version 2 Xeon, because if you don't, you'll fail your benchmark. The version 2 Xeons, they get about 300 to 310 depending, and you need 240 to pass. So it's just 60 executions above the pass mark, so not a lot. So just to give you guys an idea, that uses also DDR3 memory, which is also extremely cheap, because right now this servers are currently on DDR4, and if you're not also familiar with server memory, they use ECC, error correcting memory, which is actually extremely expensive. Like if you get some DDR4 stuff, like 128 gig kit's gonna cost you like $500. It's not cheap. But the DDR3 stuff, because we're looking at older Xeons, the memory is much cheaper. You could find used DDR3 ECC memory just everywhere. And you could use the server for other things, right? You could have a Minecraft server. I made a Minecraft server and it runs great. You could have it as a home NAS. You could use it for a Plex server. You could use it for whatever you want to use it for. You know, you're obviously going to have to do research and figure out how to set those things up. But I think for the price, you're going to get way more utility out of your server than just like a Raspberry Pi you paid $200 for, or a mini PC that's $300 or $400. So I think that this is the route to go. So we're going to look through these Xeons here, and you're going to see that this is an E5 2670. Now, with Xeons, they have version 1 and version 2. Okay, remember, we want V2. You notice that right here, this does not say V2. At the end of this 2670, it does not say V2. That means it's a version 1, and we don't want this. You do not want version 1s. It will not go over well, right? So we need to find version 2s, and you can see here that the version 4s, these are like $2,000, right? And the reason for the version 4s are why they're so much more expensive right now is they use the DDR4 memory. So I think we're on the 5th or 6th generation of the Xeons, if I'm not mistaken. But the 3rd and 4th generation does use DDR4. They are a little bit older, so they are not as expensive as newer servers, right? New servers will cost you 10, 20, 30 grand depending upon how much money you want to throw at it, right? So let's see if we can find us a nice version 2 Dell Power Edge. And then we'll get into some of the other things that you may need to consider when you're speccing out this machine, right? Okay. I mean, dude, this is even a better deal than I thought. Now, I will say that when this is the exact same listing that I have right here. This is the same listing that I bought. This is a Dell Power Edge R620. I paid $390 with tax. This thing's going for $285 right now. It's going for $100 cheaper than what I paid for it. It's the same machine. I'm tempted right now to buy. I'm like tempted to buy another one just to have another one in my house because these things are actually great. So this is 20 cores and 40 threads with 128 gigabytes of RAM. That's huge. Now, there are a few things with servers that when in this listing you won't see. So, are you just going to put this on like a computer desk? Cuz then you won't need a server rack. You don't need to buy a big tall server rack. Get all crazy. I chose to do it and look, the rack that I showed you in one of my videos is just a rack that I had, so that I chose, and that's a half-size rack. That's like a 25U rack. So there are racks that are much larger. You don't need that if you're only going to have one server. They have like 6 and 11U racks that are very small, so you don't have to get all crazy and get a big tall rack. And you can find these server racks, by the way, used on like Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp for like $100. So a server rack doesn't need to be pretty. It's just going to be a piece of metal that holds your server, and that's it. There's really not a whole lot of bells and whistles that go with it, or that you would need. But things to note is going to be, one, in this image here, it looks like these hard drive bays, these are the cages, right? Number one, these are just dummy cages. They don't actually hold the drives, number one. So you will have to buy what's called a hard drive caddy so that you could actually put the hard drive in the hot swappable bay, as well as if you do put it in a server rack, this particular listing does not come with the server rails. So you need to buy the server rails in order to mount it. Another thing to pay attention to when you're buying a server is whether it's SAS or SATA, or can it do both? If you have a SAS only machine, it'll say SAS on there. If you have a SAS only machine, do not buy it. Do not get SAS. SAS is very expensive for the SSDs because you need to have SSDs for the write speed. Do not get SAS. It's horrible. So what you need to find is you need to find out what type of RAID controller is on board on your server, because that will tell you whether or not the server can do SATA or SAS or both, right? So we're going to look up this H710 is our RAID controller. So over here at Dell, and we're going to look at these PDFs, the Dell PowerEdge RAID controller perk, and it has the 310, 710, H710P, and all this stuff. We're going to click on this PDF. Servers, you will need to learn a great amount of information about this. These do not operate like regular computers. It will be 100% different. So be patient and be prepared to obviously do a lot of trial and error, right? So in this overview of these RAID controllers, you could see that it starts to list out the H310, 710, 810, and you can see that they do mixing. They're able to do SAS and SATA and solid state drives. Now you just have to be careful when you're looking up of RAID controllers, right? You need to make sure that, is it a SAS controller only, or does it does SATA? This one does both, right? You need to be very, very careful with that, because if you get a SAS controller, that means that you can only buy and use SAS drives unless you change out the RAID controller. So that is a very important part here. Please keep that in mind. Now, I will say that in transit, my RAID controller did come loose. I had to reseat it. That was my problem. So just be ready you might have to reseat some RAM. You might have to reseat the RAID controller, reseat some power supplies. But this is a great deal. You could run all 8 of your nodes on this one machine and still have resources left over. 8 cumulus nodes is only 64 gigs of RAM and 16 cores and 20 threads. So you would have 4 cores and 8 threads left to you could even host your own Minecraft server if you wanted to, for only $300. So you guys, there's tons of options out there. This does involve a lot more work on your end with like learning how to run your own server and things like that. But let's get into some of the other like costs. But let's go over some of the features of the servers first before we get in. So we have, it can hold up to 8 hard drives, right? And they can all be SSDs. That has 20 cores, 40 threads, 128 gigs of RAM, which is upgradable up to 1.5 terabytes of RAM if you so wanted to do so. It also has a PCIe, so you could put like a small like A2000 in there if you wanted to. It has dual power supplies for redundancy. It's a pretty good server for this price. It's amazing, but problem is it doesn't come with server rails. So if you're going to use it in a rack, you have to pay $100 for server rails. Anything server related is a little expensive. Now, like I said before, that these drives here on the server are just dummy drives, so you're going to have to buy the actual hard drive caddies. They're $14.95 for a set of 2, which I will show you. So these are the actual drives that would go in that particular server. So they're $14.95 for a set of 2. So you would need 4 sets. So you're going to have to, it's going to be about $60. So if you wanted to use all the drives, if you wanted a server rack, this is the rack that I chose, the 25U StarTech rack. It is about $250. It looks like it's $280 right now, but you don't have to go that big. Now, the only thing you need to do is you need to just make sure that your rack, whatever you choose, will fit the dimensions of your server. So you just have to find the dimensions of the server here. You know what I mean? So look, you can see the, pack dimensions and stuff like that. You just need to make sure that the server will fit inside of the rack. That's it. You don't have to buy the one that I picked. So you can get smaller ones, you know what I mean? So look, here's this 19 post one. So This one's $150. And like I said, you can find them used on the Facebook Marketplace and offer up all over for dirt cheap, like $100 used. Great place to go. And here are the server rails, right? So these are the rails I'm talking about. I have to buy these because my server didn't come with them, right? Let me find the kit, really. This is the kit I bought. It's on the way here. As you can see, it's for the R620 Power Edge. So these are the rails that will mount to the server rack. And this way you could slide the server in and out of the server rack chassis. You know what I mean? Something also to note, you may have compatibility issues with using non-enterprise grade SSDs. Some work, some may not work. Because once again, these are older technologies that we're using with like newer consumer grade SSDs. So here's an SSD I bought and that works great. This is a Intel, and you can get this stuff used. I do not recommend buying brand new enterprise grade SSDs. They cost like quadruple the price I'm showing you right now. It'll be like $300 for an 800 gig SSD. These SSDs, these Intels, they're pretty much bulletproof. I would just read the listing, check out their positive reviews and things like that. I bought this one from this gentleman here, and so far it's worked, and I'm pretty happy with it. $80 is a good price for 800 gig enterprise grade SSD. That's just something that you also need to consider, because sometimes it can throw some codes. It can throw some codes in the on the server. So something else to note: everything has firmware. Even the SS to communicate with certain SSDs, it has firmware for the SSDs. It has firmware for the backplane. It literally has firmware to talk to everything on the server. So when you first get your server, you need to make absolutely sure that you update the firmware on everything to make sure that everything's operating correctly. So I just wanted to give you guys another way you guys could be getting into your Flux nodes, right? I see a lot of people buying all different kinds of solutions, doing Raspberry Pis, buying mini PCs, and this is another choice. And this can get you more. Now, does it require more work? It 100% does require more work. I will not deny that, right? It will take more work on your end to make the server go. But to me, it's like, if you can have the patience and take the time to learn this, right? This is going to benefit you extremely well, because it's going to teach you some Linux. It's going to teach you how to run a server. This stuff, I mean, if you're like me and you like messing around with this kind of stuff and like learning things, then you'll like this. If you're the kind of person that does not want to tinker around and just wants to turn something on and have it work, do not buy this. Don't do it. This is not for you. This is like intermediate level stuff. I did have help from people in the community like Yeti, Wooly, and Crypto Shape, some of the people that have lots of experience with some of this stuff. What are you guys doing for your Flux nodes? Are you guys using a Raspberry Pi? Are you using a mini PC? Are you running it off a spare PC that you guys had? Or are you guys looking to do something more on the enterprise side like I've chosen to, and gone with an actual dedicated server, for your house? So, but anyways, guys, this is the Mannequin giving you the most hashes, and I'll see you next time.